Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for coming today. Today's topic is all about resets and cheats. And I do think it's a perfect timing for today. And the reason why it's because when you're looking at the market as a whole, it's been very difficult. And I think that's good. Why do I think that's good? It's because if you're tired, usually patapos na yung reset or yung sideways or the going against the trend since our peak in February of this year. So if you look at it, it's March, April, May, June, July. We're going into August, into ghost month. Probably see another 1 or 2 months of people being tired in the markets, don't want to trade already, have suffered enough. Not in the worst part is the markets haven't even gone anywhere, right? And yet some people are already feeling tired about how come I'm doing so many scratches, how come I'm losing money. And I usually tell people, pag pagod na yung mga tao, usually pocket na yan. Okay. That's great. Okay. So, but before we talk about resets and cheats, I'd just like to do for you guys a simple guideline so it's easier for you to understand where you're coming from. Okay. I've also noticed that when it comes to like questions on the introductory Viber group, sometimes we get questions about certain setups or certain systems, for example, swing momentum. And sometimes they look at it from a different perspective. Okay. So what I'll do first is try to make a very simple guideline for you guys to make it simple for you to look at individual charts and whatsoever. Okay. So there's 3 questions I want you guys to ask yourselves all the time. The first question is, what is the trend? And some people in this question alone, palpak na. Okay, and I'll explain why in a bit. Second question is about whether you're in magnitude or you're in duration. Okay, so when you're looking at any chart from a 6 months to 1 year perspective, you look at the chart and tell yourself, are we up, down, or sideways? Are we in magnitude or are we in duration? And if you're in up, what's your expectation? Are you looking to buy it and trend trade it because it's a swing momentum or a position? Or is it down, so you're looking at it for capitulation and reversal, for example, like the Philippines? Or if nothing is happening, that's when cheats, and you'll see a lot of cheats happen today in the US. Even today, you'll probably see a lot of setups for tonight. And I have a lot of examples for you guys later this afternoon. Okay, so what do I mean by what's the trend? And the funny part is, a lot of people usually rely on EMAs, which is what we taught before. I mean, if you have no background, the easiest way is for you to look at stuff, for example, greater than the 50-day, usually you're an uptrend, less than the 200-day, usually you're in a downtrend, and anything between the 50 and the 200-day, usually we tell people you're in sideways, or if you don't know what's happening. Okay. Now, a lot of things was based on visual, but I'll try to give you guys an easier guideline since we're on Zoom and since I can draw easier on my PowerPoint presentation today. Okay. So let's start. So I have here on my chart is ARC ETF. Okay. And how I usually look at any single chart is if I ask you guys today, are we up, down, or sideways? Sometimes people would give me different answers. What do I mean? Some people would say, yes, we've been up. We've been going up since past year and we've been doing well, right? Sometimes you hear people, nah, we've just been going sideways, right? Because the price has been going anywhere, right? And then some people will tell you, nah, bias to pababa. So it's most likely going to continue this downtrend here, okay? So let me remove all that. And the fastest way to understand whether you're up, down, and sideways is the first step is to look at where's the lowest point in the chart, which is here. This is the lowest point, okay? And then you look at the highest point, which is here, okay? And the first step that you have to do is connect the lowest point with the highest point. That's your first step all the time. And you'll probably come out with a line that looks like here. So before we get there, the question is, why are they difficult? Okay, because usually when you're seeing cheats or you're seeing companies that are in sideways, usually the entire market, let's say, for example, like ARC, is sideways. So why is that difficult? The reason why first is because it's what we call a no interest environment. So when the sentiment is against you and nobody knows what's going to happen, whether up or down, usually it's difficult to convince everybody you want to be buying. Okay. So it's difficult for prices to go up when nobody knows what's happening. Nobody knows if they like it. Nobody knows if they don't like it. Okay. Usually if there's a trend or there's volatility, it is very helpful to us. Why? It's because we can make money on the uptrend and we can make money usually on the downtrend because there's usually excess moves happening on both angles. Okay. In a no interest environment, normally you don't have excess, and that's a problem. Okay, because if there's no excess, there's no irrationality, it becomes more difficult for traders to make money because volatility is also less. And I'm sure, like, if you had in your experience, okay, I made money one day, the next day nawala. The next time you bought a stock, you don't sell, the next day bumaba na. And then the next time you buy and then you sell, it goes up higher. And it becomes so complicated, right, that sometimes you're just going through a period of washing sales, okay, where you make a little, you lose a little. You're not really losing a lot because you're cutting your losses, but sometimes the time element becomes very tiring for you guys, that essentially you get burned out. Okay. Some of the other companies that are stronger than the market, you had Wilcon show earnings, great earnings, recovery quarter on quarter, was a little bit, I think single digit, 5% quarter on quarter. Nonetheless, at least you know the business is pointing in the right direction. CNPF is still cheap. Look at CNPF, right? Same cases also. These guys are all stronger than the market. CNPF, Converge, ASEN, so on and so forth. What we're trying to do here is just pick the ones that we like the most. Okay. Going back to some of the other resets that we saw, for example, like with Dito, this is what I'm trying for you guys to avoid. So I just moved back. So you'll notice that these are your resets here. After this big run up, you have these resets. Normally, I tell people to avoid. Okay. Again, going back, if I zoom this in, these guys can just go into no interest and fall down 70, 80, 90%. You've had the same case with Dito, with Premier Horizon, with SquidPay, and whatsoever. Normally, what we're waiting for is these guys to break out. We want these guys to break out and then pause, and then we'll find a way to participate. Not trying to catch these guys at support. That is totally different. Okay. Same case with nickel. Nickel is also stronger than the market. Same case with Del Monte pulling back. These are fair game. You want to be buying these guys for the pullback? Fair game. Okay. The only reason why we haven't paid much attention to Del Monte was because we think the IPO is, I think Del Monte in general is very expensive. That's why we're having second guesses on the IPO. We're not super confident in the business model. And it's just mostly to pay off their debt. That's why if you notice about Del Monte, it's all secondary for Del Monte Philippines. Okay, last stickers for home. Again, these guys are below the 50 and 200 day least priority. Okay, great. So I'll just summarize everything really quick based on that. The setups are the same for cheats and resets towards pullbacks and coils. It's just a different nature because they have different expectations, which I mentioned a while ago. Please, you're still in a non-trending environment, and that's why fundamentals is key. Okay. And because you're still in sideways, these guys still take a lot of time before they will break out. Don't think that everything will go up right away. Okay. These guys will take time. In the meantime, you want to be building your list and trying to focus on the leaders, because again, when it comes to relative strength, leaders will always lead. As much as possible, avoid the speculative ones, and as much as possible, also avoid the laggards. Okay. Last but not the least, this is not environment for you to be going all in, margin, putting in so much. Okay. Keep your expectations in check. You want to be adding more when you keep on getting your hit ratios start going higher, as what Lawrence was explaining before. And you want to be starting doing less, especially when you're going through a series of scratch trades or cutting losses. Okay, so you don't want to be adding when you're keep on making mistakes or you keep on losing money. VAR ka ng VAR every day. Okay, that's not the time for you to be adding. Obviously, the market is going against you. That's why you want to be doing less. Okay, so that pretty much ends my presentation. I'm open to questions or anything else. And thank you guys.